You don't know what God is making while you're crying. You don't know what God is making while
For
you're...
decades, Bishop T.D. Jakes stood as one of the most powerful and respected voices in modern ministry. A preacher, author, and visionary whose words lifted millions across the world. But when whispers about his health began circulating online, what started as quiet concern soon became a global conversation. Supporters noticed small changes. His tone seemed softer, his steps slower, his presence on stage less frequent. At first, people brushed it off as natural fatigue. Yet as months passed, the absences grew harder to ignore. The man who had always been a pillar of energy and inspiration seemed to be stepping back, and no one knew why. Fans who had leaned on his sermons for strength found themselves worried for the very man who had taught them how to stay strong. This wasn't gossip. It was genuine concern for someone millions considered family. The powerhouse behind the pulpit. To understand the weight of this moment, you have to understand what Bishop Jakes built. The Potter's House wasn't just a church, it was a movement. With more than 30,000 members in Dallas and millions tuning in online every week, it became a spiritual home for people across generations and backgrounds. His voice echoed through packed arenas, conferences, and best-selling books that crossed from faith into leadership, family, and personal growth. From Woman Thou Art Loosed to Megafest, Jakes blended inspiration with practicality, touching hearts and empowering minds. But behind that global influence was a man who carried unimaginable responsibility, a spiritual leader, entrepreneur, husband, and father who gave everything he had to others. Over the years, that calling came with a cost few could see. Subtle signs, growing questions. By 2022, longtime supporters began sensing something had changed. His sermons, though still powerful, carried a gentler tone. He spoke with more reflection, pausing longer between words, sometimes leaning on the podium. His schedule, once relentless, began to show more gaps. Missed conferences, shorter appearances, occasional guest speakers filling in. Online communities started to ask the question everyone was thinking, but too afraid to voice. Was Bishop Jakes okay? Theories flooded social media, some suggesting exhaustion, others hinting at serious health challenges. The family and ministry stayed quiet, not out of secrecy, but likely to protect his privacy. Yet that silence, while respectful, only deepened the mystery. For a man who had always been open and transparent about life's struggles, this quiet felt unusual, the human behind the title. For many, Bishop Jakes isn't just a preacher, he's a father figure. His sermons on perseverance have walked people through heartbreak, loss, and personal failure. His voice is often the one believers hear in their darkest moments. So when signs of struggle began to surface, the emotional response was immediate and personal. It wasn't about celebrity gossip. It was about love. Followers from all walks of life felt a collective ache, praying that the man who had helped them heal would now find his own restoration. Pastors and ministry leaders began speaking out about how hard it is to maintain balance under the pressure of global leadership. They pointed out that what Bishop Jakes was facing might not just be a personal trial, it might represent a larger conversation about burnout, rest, and the toll of serving others relentlessly. The family breaks their silence. Months passed before his family decided to address the growing speculation. When they finally spoke, it wasn't through a press release or flashy announcement, but through heartfelt, authentic words that trickled out at small gatherings and family events. His daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts, herself a powerful pastor and speaker, shared that her father had indeed been facing health challenges. But she clarified that they were not sudden or catastrophic. Instead, they were the result of decades of constant ministry, non-stop travel, sleepless nights, and the emotional strain of guiding millions. The family admitted that for years they had urged him to slow down, but Bishop Jakes's sense of duty had always come first. He had continued to push through fatigue and discomfort to deliver messages that uplifted others. The irony, they explained, was that the same passion that fueled his greatness had also pushed his body to its limits. A pause, not an ending. What surprised everyone was how the family framed this season, not as tragedy, but as transformation. They made it clear that Bishop Jakes wasn't retiring or disappearing. He was simply taking time to recover, reflect, and rebuild. For someone who had poured decades of energy into serving others, this moment was about learning to rest and allowing others to pour back into him. His daughter called it a divine pause, describing it as God's way of reminding even leaders that they are human. This honesty was refreshing and humbling. It dismantled the myth that faith leaders must always appear invincible. Instead, Bishop Jakes's story became a lesson in vulnerability, a reminder that strength sometimes looks like stepping back to heal. It showed his followers that even those who lead millions still need moments to breathe. The rise of Sarah Jakes Roberts. As Bishop Jakes took time away, a familiar voice began to rise in his place. His daughter, Sarah. Already a respected preacher and best-selling author, she began stepping more boldly into leadership at the Potter's House. Her sermons carried her father's depth, but with her own unique style, resonating especially with younger generations. Many saw her presence not as a replacement, but as an evolution, a continuation of the Jakes legacy through new eyes. Yet, her growing influence also stirred questions. Could anyone truly fill Bishop Jakes's shoes? Would the ministry feel the same without his commanding voice? While those doubts surfaced, most followers embraced Sarah's leadership as a blessing, a sign that the vision her father began would live on, stronger and more inclusive than ever. Faith, family, and renewal. Through all the noise and speculation, one truth became clear. Bishop Jakes was loved deeply by both his family and his followers. In private, those close to him described this time as one of healing, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Instead of collapsing under the pressure of rumors, the family united, turning inward toward prayer, gratitude, and care. They saw this not as an ending, but as a sacred opportunity for renewal. His wife, Sarita Jakes, stood as his anchor, ensuring that peace surrounded their home. Meanwhile, Sarah and the Jakes children took on greater roles, showing that legacy and faith is not about a single person. It's about building a foundation strong enough for others to stand upon. In the same way, Bishop Jakes had once told his followers that your pain has purpose. His own journey became living proof of that message. The legacy continues. As the Potter's House adjusted to new rhythms, guest speakers filled the pulpit, and Sarah Jakes Roberts began shaping the next phase of the ministry. The church didn't lose its energy. It evolved. Services still overflowed with worship, and messages still carried the same power, now with an added layer of reflection. People began to see that the movement Bishop Jakes started had grown far beyond one man. It was a community built on faith, resilience, and shared belief. The man who once spoke about crushing, becoming a path to destiny, was now living that very lesson. His ministry, in many ways, had entered its most profound chapter, not one of expansion, but of endurance and legacy. A global conversation. About Grace Beyond Dallas, conversations about Bishop Jakes' health opened doors to discuss grace in leadership. It reminded people that faith leaders, like everyone else, need support systems and time to recharge. It reframed strength, not as constant motion, but as knowing when to pause. Across continents, his followers continued to pray for him, but their prayers changed tone. They weren't asking for him to get back to the pulpit quickly. They were asking for peace, longevity, and balance. Many saw this as a new phase in his calling, a period not of retirement, but of reflection, mentorship, and passing wisdom to the next generation. A season of healing and hope today. Bishop T.D. Jakes continues to recover and rebuild at his own pace, surrounded by love, gratitude, and unwavering faith. He occasionally appears in public or online, his presence calmer, his words even more profound. Each time he speaks, it carries the weight of someone who has lived every word he preaches. His story, once filled with whispers of worry, has become a testament to endurance, faith, and family. What began as speculation has turned into a living message. That even giants need rest, and even the strongest leaders must allow themselves to heal. In his vulnerability, Bishop Jakes has shown the world that grace is not only something you preach, it's something you live. Conclusion: the man, the mission, the message. The journey of Bishop T.D. Jakes is no longer just about sermons or success. It's about legacy, humanity, and the courage to embrace change. What could have been a moment of fear became a moment of faith. His family's transparency, his daughter's rise, and the unwavering love of millions have turned uncertainty into inspiration. As he rests, prays, and prepares for whatever comes next, one truth remains unshaken. His voice, whether from the pulpit or from quiet reflection, still moves hearts. And maybe that's the greatest legacy of all, that the power of his message was never just in his strength, but in his willingness to show the world what it means to be human.